He deliberately targets residential areas. You're absolutely right that he wants to break our will. But Ukraine's will is unbreakable. But the thing is that Putin believes that the time plays for him, that this is directly in his favor, that the more he kills Ukrainians, the more he plays for the time, the more he tries to humiliate the United States and the entire Western world.
Last night, Russia launched another major assault on Kyiv. It was the largest since the start of the war. At least 17 people have died, 3 were children. A building used by the British Council was damaged during these strikes, and the Russian ambassador, as I say, had been summoned. Sir Keir Starmer put out a statement on X, and this is what he said.
My thoughts are with all those affected by the senseless Russian strikes on Kyiv, which have damaged the British Council building. Putin is killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. This bloodshed must end.
An EU building was also hit, among many civilian homes. The European Commissioner, Ursula von der Leyen, she condemned the attack.
I'm outraged by the attack on Kyiv, also hitting our EU offices. This was the deadliest drone and missile attack on the capital since July. And this is another grim reminder of what is at stake. It shows that the Kremlin will stop at nothing to terrorize Ukraine, blindly killing civilians, men, women and children, and even targeting the European Union. This is why we are keeping maximum pressure on Russia.
The EU Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen. There is to be a briefing, a news conference at 6 o'clock from the White House with Caroline Levitt at the podium. As always, we'll see whether that delivers any kind of response to these attacks from the White House. Meanwhile, a bit of fighting continues on the front line in Ukraine. Times' Arseny Yatseniuk has been talking to Ukrainian soldiers stationed near Sumy.
Due to the amount of drones now, they stay in the trenches or in their foxholes much longer than they used to, months in some cases, because they can't be rotated out by vehicles. It's very difficult to get to them. They're resupplied almost entirely by drones. Drones drop them their water, their food, their ammunition, their cigarettes. And their days are full of, rats are everywhere, feeding off the dead in the no man's land. Flies are everywhere. The whole place stinks. They're very thirsty a lot of the time in the summer fighting as well. Water's scarce. Some of the drone drops of bottled water rupture, so you get 8 guys having to kind of share out 1 bottle of water between them.
That's Arseny Yatseniuk reporting. Now, I can welcome to the programme Jimmy Rushton, who's a Ukrainian military analyst. He's based in Kyiv. Hello to you, Jimmy.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So the targets and the casualties, what do we take from this? Again, we saw significant strikes on civilian targets.
Absolutely. It isn't the first time that Russia has struck civilian targets with what are relatively precise missiles. So this isn't a case of Russian munitions going astray and hitting targets they weren't supposed to. The munitions that they used are relatively precise, relatively sophisticated, and they deliberately struck civilian targets. And it's almost certainly a message that Putin feels a sense of impunity, and he's attempting to demonstrate that and to terrorize the Ukrainian people into some form of submission.
Yes, I mean, the aim of breaking the will of the Ukrainian people, making them, I suppose, more malleable and exposed to a wish to see this war end on his terms. You could see that as part of the motives. And also the European Union saying this is simply mocking the peace process, not that there is a peace process. I mean, at the summit just a few days ago, we saw the Russian foreign minister wearing a Soviet Union T-shirt. Now, that was a kind of mockery. This is another kind of mockery, surely, just much deadlier.
Yeah, absolutely. They really aren't serious about peace. Fundamentally, because at the moment, Putin believes it's in his interest to keep the fighting going. He believes he can still take territory from Ukraine on the battlefield. And until he believes that it's not in his interest to keep fighting, he's not going to come to terms. It's as simple as that. He doesn't care about the number of Russian soldiers getting killed. He doesn't really care about the damage to Russia's economy as long as he can keep it ticking over. So really, in order to bring him to terms, pressure needs to be increased. That means increasing military aid to Ukraine. It means increasing sanctions to Russia. All these statements from European leaders and from Starmer, it's great, but it doesn't really add up to much because it's just really ignored in Russia.
All right, Jimmy Rushton in Kyiv. Grateful to you, Jimmy, for joining us. Now I can welcome Arseny Yatseniuk, the former Prime Minister of Ukraine, who is live on the line. Arseny, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, John. Hello.
You're again very welcome. These attacks very, very clearly meant to break the will of Ukrainians. Can you give me a sense, a picture of how morale in Kyiv, in Ukraine, but in the capital, may be bearing up now? Because this must be exhausting.
Well, I can tell you that practically half of Kyiv was in the underground shelter. Another half were in some kind of more or less safe places. But there is no safe place in my country right now. Neither on the front line, nor in the capital of Ukraine, nor in the western of Ukraine. Every single spot, every single residential area is hit or could be hit by Russians. So on the one hand, we're used to this. But on the other hand, John, it's a real drama and never-ending disaster for the majority of Ukrainian people. Kids have been killed. So he deliberately targets residential areas. You're absolutely right that he wants to break our will. But Ukraine's will is unbreakable. But the thing is that Putin believes that the time plays for him, that this is directly in his favor, that the more he kills Ukrainians, the more he plays for the time, the more he tries to humiliate the United States and the entire Western world, the more Ukrainians he kills, the better chances to get Ukraine as a state that could be digested by Russia he has. So once again, this is the war of attrition. And the only solution right now that we have on the table is to fight against Putin, to press on Putin, and to stay united and to press like hell on these designated war criminals. There is no way, just no way, that he is ready to cut any kind of fair and just peace. Don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy even an inch of this.
No. I mean, look, your outrage, Arseny, is shared clearly by your supporters and friends in Europe. You'll have seen the remarks from Brussels. You'll have seen the Russian ambassador being called in London. Now, it is up to Trump, isn't it, to get the message and show that he has the message and to act on it. But how much faith or belief can you have in that happening?
You know, John, the thing is that we've already crafted a number of different messages. We are perfect in holding summits, sending out messages, delivering some kind of perfect speeches. But I wish that we're going to be perfect in undertaking strong and decisive actions. We can do it in a complete silence. This is the language the war criminal Putin understands. No words, tight lip, but with the strong and bold resolve to impose secondary sanctions, to enforce the sanctions that have been already imposed, to provide an additional security supplemental for Ukraine, to present one united free world front against Putin, to get along with India, to press on China, and at least in the end, to get what is needed for this world, saving Ukraine and saving the remnants of the global order.
Yes. I mean, effective secondary sanctions would bite the economy of Ukraine. It would be, certainly there's a certain amount, you realize, in Europe and elsewhere.
Russia, I believe, John.
Sorry, Arseny?
You said that sanctions would bite Ukraine. No, secondary sanctions would bite Russia.
Yeah, indeed. Forgive me. Clearly, I meant Russia. I mean, it would be vastly more offensive with the American administration alongside. Now, the American president tells us he's going to contemplate taking steps in 2 weeks. I've literally lost count of the number of times President Trump has said he'll be contemplating action in 2 weeks' time. It is very difficult to take this stuff seriously now, isn't it, Arseny?
John, we are out of time. We are not allowed to grant any kind of immunity and impunity for Putin. We are not allowed to grant him another weeks, months, or even years, because Putin strongly believes that he can even get years of this. So you're absolutely right. The US administration and personally President Trump, they can impose these sanctions. And right now, it all depends on the leadership of the leader of the free world, because I still believe that the United States still present and represent the free world, and it is the flagship of this free world. So it depends. Putin doesn't care about words. He cares about actions. It is high time. It is really high time to act.